You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 438. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Danny Worsnop of Asking Alexandria. How are you, sir?
Having me. I'm good. I'm good. I'm fluctuating between warm and cold. We were just talking before you were live. We're all snowed in here in Nashville, so my heating is going too far or not far enough. So I keep taking this off and putting it back on and
Right.
fighting some war.
You're going through menopause,
Yeah,
getting
that's
hot
it.
flashes.
Yep.
It
No
finally
more periods though, so that's an upside.
and it finally just snowed here. I'm in Queens, New York, and it's cold, but just these last few winters, this with the lack of snow, I'm not complaining, but it's kind of weird when you grow up with snow days and you don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I spent the last 5 years in Florida, so I didn't
oh man.
I never saw it, which was great. And I forgot what it was like.
Well, that Florida has its own thing. Well, you know what? This kind of lends itself to where I want to start with you talking about different places in the U.S. and you're coming back. Well, you are back in the U.S., but you're back to the tour, and you've
Yeah.
been all over the world. You just announced the new tour, All My Friends North American tour, which kicks off in April in support of Where Do We Go From Here from Better Noise Music. How do you compare touring in the US and the States and other parts of the world? Because I've had this conversation a lot with people who are abroad. And I don't know, is it true, do you think rock fans aren't maybe as passionate here in the US? Like what's your experience?
No, I think it's honestly, and people, no one ever wants to hear. I think it's more so Europe doesn't want to hear this. It's the same. It's the same. There's absolutely no difference. They're not crazy over there. They're not crazy over here. It's regardless of where you go, people are just talking different accents, and some of them have stupid money.
Oh, I love
I
that.
think I think there's sometimes more excitement. It's not really in Europe or places like that. It's when you go to like South America, parts of Asia, like nobody goes to. They have like maybe 10 entire shows a year go through their country. So they get a little more excited, but it really doesn't it doesn't change it. It definitely doesn't change anything show wise, with the exception of maybe Japan, who have some strange cultural stuff.
Okay.
Like silence. With the
That must
exception of that, it's the same. Yeah, I prefer touring here because I mean it's where all my friends are, it's where I live, it's where I've been the last 15 years. And like I get to fly home on days off and
that's
feel.
true. Do you have any favorite as you wear a Houston hat, do you have like a favorite state that you're looking to, a favorite
No, this
stop?
just says Houston, I am the problem.
Oh, I say couldn't see the rest of the
Yeah.
hat. Sorry.
You're good. I have a lot of favorite places. I think state wise, I'd probably have to go to Florida, which I
Okay.
didn't. I never used to rate or care about at all because it's not a particularly strong market for us. And then I moved there and lived there for the last 5 years and fell in love with it. I'll probably end up back there because I miss the ocean. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm in Tennessee now. I mean, I've lived all over, so I have friends everywhere, and we have a lot of fun. There's a couple places in this country that are very special gems that we don't talk about because people from there get mad because then people start moving there.
Oh, okay.
Boise, Idaho, um, which is one of the best places in this entire world. One of the prettiest places in the world too. But yeah, there's a lot of gems in this country, and the beautiful thing about it is you can spend 2 months touring around it and feel like you're in a different country every day.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. Is that why the tour is called All My Friends? You get to see all your friends?
No, I've been trying to tour with Maddie and Telly, who are two of my best friends in the world, for the better part of 10 years. And I've been pushing for it for forever. And on the last tour, I just reached a point where we were talking about touring and what 24 was going to look like. So I just bypassed managers and booking agents, and I just called them. I was like, "You guys want to do this?" And we kind of pieced it together ourselves, and then put it in front of everyone. And yeah, it's crushing. So
Oh, I love that. I love that. How has the reception been to the latest album, going out on tour and playing the new music live? It's been a few months since it came out, right in
yep.
September.
It's been really good, and which is what you always want, but it was definitely the intention with this record. I'm always very kind of, I don't want to say selfish, but I like to write and create music for me, and it's just it's my art that I'm putting out, and if people like it, amazing. If they don't, that's fine. This one was done completely differently. It was very much like it was what did they want? What did the fans want? Just give them that.
Oh, I love that. And you such are a fan oriented band, and because we identify with your lyrics, and we know that you've been through a lot in your life. Where do the lyrics come from now? What's kind of the message you want to get out now? Because I got to imagine it's different than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, this was nothing to do with life. It was nothing to do with any experiences of mine or ours. It was kind of a look through our discography and what have people connected with and related with, and what have people outspokenly wanted more of, and then it's write songs about that rather than it being a journey or like something autobiographical, which is how I usually work. So it was a different experience working on this record, because it wasn't, I don't want this to come across negatively because I don't mean it that way, but there isn't a piece of me in there, which is how I usually music is a very personal thing, and this was very much a what are the pieces that have worked and people have gravitated towards over the years. Let's just make those.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so that was a conscious decision then.
Yes, yeah, very
Okay.
much. We started writing a totally different record, and I remember we were on the phone one day. And I don't remember what we were talking about at the time, but it eventually led me to just be like, listen, let's just make a for them album. Like, actors do it all the time. Like, it's the whole thing. It's like one for you, one for them. We've done what, 9 for us. So this is one for them, and I don't think there's a bad side in that.
No.
Ironically, as many times as I've been told I've sold out, I think this is the first time it's arguable. But
But even then, it's not selling out. I've
yeah,
never heard that because I've heard that phrase, do one for me, one for them in the music movie business, like you said, but I've never heard that in the music business. And yeah, why not
yeah.
do that? And especially if you're together, this isn't the last record by any means. You're going to continue to create. So I think
Well,
that's
we'll see about records. That might be a dead medium now. It will be
yeah.
the music.
Yeah, so I guess because Dark Void, the EP, right? Is that how you think it's gonna continue going forward? EPs?
I don't know. I think it's going to be something that we've just got to keep an eye on the landscape. Obviously, Ronnie's been doing the single thing for a while, and that's worked out super well. But he isn't really a good barometer of what works for everyone else, because he's an enigma in his own right. So I think it's just going to take trial and error and figuring out what music looks like moving forward. I mean, the industry's changed so much, even since we started 15 years ago. We, I mean, we were on the we sold records when it came out, when we started, and it was, granted, not how it was in the 90s and early 2000s, but it was still like albums were a thing, and it's just streaming it's changed everything, and everyone's trying to play catch up and figure out how it works now.
Do you, is it maybe, how has that changed your approach? I guess in addition, aside from like album versus EP, but does that change the kind of music you want because it's so much of a click? You either grabs you or you don't. You
Yeah,
can't just marinate with a whole album and listen to it. It's just a different.
I think
Yeah.
it's gonna thin the herd a bit, because ironically it's easier to put out music, but because there's so much of it, mediocre stuff is gonna fall through the cracks, and some good stuff is too, and that's an unfortunate uh, side effect of it, and it's kind of a sad casualty of that business model. But I think it's going to force people to be better,
Hmm.
and I think it's changed the way I'm looking at songs, because instead of it being an album, I'm just thinking about like individual songs, which I think opens up creativity. Which is like, cool, they don't need to flow together anymore. They don't need to fit together.
Okay. Yeah,
Like it
so
doesn't
that's
need to feel like a cohesive piece of work anymore because they're not being played together.
that's it's well said, and that's how I approach new music versus
Yeah.
what I used to listen to. And this is kind of a hodgepodge segue into because I'm sure you noticed the name of the podcast, Appetite for Distortion,
Mm-hmm.
Guns N' Roses themed. So they've come out with new-ish, I'll put ish in parentheses, music that some of it was written 20 years ago. Slash and Duff reworked it, and it sounds like it should be in an album versus single. That's
Yeah.
another story. But I know you have what I call the 6 degrees of GNR bacon. By the way, what are you eating? I'm jealous.
I didn't even know you were from New York. I literally made meatballs earlier.
Ah,
Super,
yeah.
super appropriate.
Oh, perfect. If I was Italian, but if they should be matzo balls for me next time.
They're covered in mozzarella. So, I mean, I don't know how these things combine, but it just feels like a very New York thing to just like, that's my meal three.
Oh, hey, I appreciate the vibe, man. We're just hanging out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I'm on your time. So thanks for, for
No,
taking
absolutely.
the
We
time.
keep we keep these
So,
things casual. I don't do the pro thing.
yeah. Well, that's part of it because I've been in radio for 20 plus years, but this podcast thing has been such a unique kind of like you streaming versus the
Absolutely.
record. It's just like it's a different creativity. So that's why I did a Guns N' Roses podcast instead of just being the Brando show or
Yeah.
just a generic rock show, something a little different. So it gives me opportunities to speak with people like you
Yeah.
and talk. So uh it was like it seems like not that long ago, but it was a long time ago because I mentioned Slash and Duff are back in the band, but you opened up for Guns N' Roses when it was a different version. I was wondering,
I actually have a few different degrees of separation with
I
Guns N'
was
Roses.
hoping to address a few of those, and there's a lot of I still want to talk to you about. So yeah, where's your brain headed to right now?
It started with us opening for Guns, which was a very underwhelming experience.
Okay.
We didn't have enough songs, so we ended up playing one of the songs I think 2 or 3 times. And we literally flew in, and then we were the tiny little dressing room that we were kind of locked in and weren't allowed out. And then we got rushed out. So that first time was very underwhelming. And then after that, I was dating a very nice lady who Axl had recently dated, and he wasn't a fan of that. So we had we had a couple kind of pseudo run-ins to where it was a little confrontation, but it's all good. And then I worked with Duff. We did what did I do with Duff? I think he did me and D did something. I think Duff played on it. But Duff's always been super cool and supportive. And then I did what was it called? Camp Freddy back in LA. And Slash was my guitarist for that.
I mean, those are pretty
Oh, was
special.
Sorum. Sorum was as well.
Yeah, he's
And I did a
part of.
song for the Adler record that never came out.
So
I've
that's part.
practically been in the whole band.
I know. So a few things to touch on there, and you don't need to go deeper into it if it's, in the past, but you and Axel got an argument because you're Eskimo brothers. Is that what happened?
No, I mean, he grew up in a totally different decade with a very different life. So I'm sure his brain and socially works very differently than perhaps yours and mine.
Mm.
So he was just very heavily like still pursuing her. And like we were staying in the same hotel. So it was like if this continues, I will come up to your room. You've already told me the room number.
Okay.
I was having dinner with a security guard at the time, and there was a conversation about that then. And yeah, it never came to be anything, but
So is there no truth? Because there was a rumor that you and Sebastian Bach and possibly Axel worked on a song together.
no.
Okay, because I that's on YouTube about saying like did Danny from this is like from 2011. Did Danny let it slip that because you've only performed live with Sebastian, right?
Yeah, I
Nothing
performed
recorded?
live with Sebastian 3 times. Um, we had a fallout after that because he lost his marbles a little bit. I work a lot with a couple different military and veteran organizations. I've done a fair bit of stuff in the firearm space, and he'd seen some picture of something, and he lost his mind on that.
Okay, okay, fair enough.
And it was like, okay, you calm down. We're done with this. I'm not wasting
Okay.
energy here.
All right, fair enough. So those two those two bullet points. When I was Sebastian, excuse me, with Steven Adler,
Yeah,
you because you performed with him. So there's two things there. There was an album that you recorded with him that never came out, or
it
a
was just
song
one song. It
was
was it
one
was it
song.
was a song for one of his records, and I remember we went in and recorded it. I don't know if it ever got used. I don't know if that record ever his full album that of whatever they were working on ever came out. But
Okay.
someone brought it up to me recently about wanting to like redo it and put it out. Um, but that was the kind of the end of what I heard of it.
I really hope so. I
Yeah,
mean, I love when you find out that these artists worked together years ago and it's always been a
yeah.
rumor and the rumor is finally confirmed. So who knows? Who knows? So I'll keep my eyes peeled for that. And there was another connection with Steven Adler that I've always seen this flyer for so long. It was a very famous Halloween party that it was you, Steven Adler, I guess, performing Appetite songs and a performance by the Ultimate Warrior, the late and great Ultimate Warrior. And I
No,
was
that was it may have been around Halloween, but it was the filming of our first DVD,
right. It was for a
and I believe he
DVD.
came. I'm trying to. I might be way off, and it did happen, but for some reason in my head, I'm thinking he either didn't end up making it to the show or we didn't end up performing the song because
Oh,
he was supposed to come do some. It was one or two songs, and for whatever reason, my brain's telling me that like it didn't even end up happening. But it was all like planned and organized. But the Ultimate Warrior thing was earlier that day or the day before we filmed for his TV show.
because so he was going to perform like songs with you, or he was going to be like perform
No,
wrestling
I think it
stunts.
was just a completely side thing. Like he was gonna do some announcement on stage or
Oh,
something.
okay. And just along that path, because it's kind of, that phrase, I was today years old when I found out. I just watched. I had no idea that Ultimate Warrior had it because I'm a wrestling fan.
Yeah,
I had a show that you guys were on it. I watched it. One of the most inspirational things I've ever seen. I was hoping you can kind of reflect on that experience all these years later. And
so
he
strange.
sadly wouldn't be alive too much longer after
No,
the that series.
no, it was very shortly before then. It was very shortly before he passed. Um, yeah, it was so strange, and I don't know if it was by design that it was done this way. But we arrived, hung out for like 30 minutes, an hour. We're just hanging out, talking, getting to know each other. Nicest guy. And then, like as you see in the show, we had wine and stuff. We didn't know the context of what was going to happen,
Oh, really?
so we were just like hanging out, getting to know each other, and I think it was pitched at the time as like a preliminary, preliminary, a meeting.
Preliminary. I fuck up
Yeah,
words
but
all the
I'm
time.
tongue tied today. Apparently, didn't have enough coffee. Um, and so we're hanging out, getting to know each other, and it's like, all right, we're ready to start. And he was like, yeah. And we're like, all right, cool. We're gonna go out and smoke a cigarette. We've got time for that. He's like, yeah, absolutely. Go outside, no rush. And that's when he just stormed out, now in character, screaming and yelling at us. This guy that we've just been hanging out with and chatting with for an hour. And all of a sudden, he's just the angriest guy. I'm like, what the hell is happening?
That's so funny knowing that
Yeah.
now because I was like,
I cut the end of this finger off the day before.
yeah, I remember
I just had fresh stitches and was bandaged up and ended up getting really infected from that whole thing.
I thought you were going to lose that finger by the end of the episode.
I I was worried.
And that's just so funny because for those who haven't seen it or just want to be inspired, if you have, it's been years since you've seen it. But I was like, wow, the balls on Danny is showing up to a workout with a bottle of wine, and little do you know that it wasn't
To be
planned.
fair, I have done
Oh,
that. I have taken alcohol to the gym quite often. My gym's in my house now, so it's like the fridge is right there.
oh, beautiful. I mean, does that is that up there with one of like the craziest or most unique experiences you've had being in a band? Because that's something you don't expect. I'm sure it's the touring, the fans, the rock, drugs and excess and all that. Is that one of the most unique experiences you've ever had was to work out with the Ultimate Warrior? What else comes to your mind?
There's so many. There are a lot that my lawyer will yell at me if I tell.
Okay.
um, yeah, I think I didn't appreciate it so much at the time, or appreciate uh the rareness of that and wildness of it, because I didn't come from that world. So I didn't really, I had been told who he was in context of us doing this thing, but I wasn't familiar.
You were the only one who raised their hand too. Like, does anybody know who I am and what I did? And you were the only one.
I'd been given the rundown,
That's funny.
but it wasn't like I hadn't followed his career or anything, and I wasn't as clued in, so I didn't really experience the gravity of it as much.
Okay. It was after the fact you watched,
Yeah, it's
him and
been
Hogan and WrestleMania, and you're like,
yeah,
whoa, that's that guy.
it's been a lot of years later that it's kind of been like, oh shit. And honestly, I think more so after Hogan's been doing the rounds of all the comedy podcasts where he's telling these stories. I'm like, oh shit, I knew that guy.
Yeah, 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 and yeah, that is a special, and just someone like again for me to see it all these years later and be like, whoa. I mean, I know the guy's gone, but
Yeah.
super inspirational, and that's what people find from you. So, just a couple more questions before, because I know you have a lot of these lined up. There were rumors for more rumors, but you were working on a an autobiography, right? And is that still no? Is that done? Or
I
you
was
never were? You never were?
I was very young and naive, and I thought it was a good idea. And I sat in a hotel room one day and wrote like 2 chapters and realized there wasn't that much left to tell. Um, we never had a gold record. We were on like our first or second headline tour, and man, it was just alcohol and ego getting the better of me. It was
Okay.
pre-growing up a little bit.
Oh, I love that. No,
I don't want to claim to be too grown up. There is currently a 14-foot snow penis in my front driveway. Um, it's enormous. If this wasn't a monitor, I'd show you, but
it's okay. I have a nice image in my head. I appreciate it.
it's very it's a lot. Yeah,
Hey, I think I'm a little older than you. I'm 40, and I have to learn to start watching my mouth around my 9-month-old because I'm always saying really not
yeah,
curses, just
yeah,
duty, poop, penis. I'm still as part of my vernacular.
yeah,
I'm very professional. Uh,
yeah. But
so
yeah, that whole book thing. It was a just very short delusional day in a
okay, fair
room
enough.
somewhere in like Omaha or something.
Anything in the We Are Harlot world, or all the focus is on asking?
The focus is not all on asking, but there isn't anything harder. Honestly, after that first record and after our touring cycle, we'd started writing some stuff, and IBC was not in Asking Alexandria anymore. And they hit me up asking if I would do a tour. They had fired the previous guy, but they had a tour lined up. So they were like, they were going to cancel it. And they were like, well, on a just on the off chance, let's throw a Hail Mary and see if Danny will just come do the tour. So I agreed to come just do the tour. That was the end of the conversation. It was just do a tour. Bruno was really hurt by that, and he felt really betrayed, and that's fine. And yeah, we haven't spoken since then. So
Okay. All
so
right.
this is like 2016, 2017. There's been I've seen Jeff, I think, twice since then. We had a brief discussion, but I don't have room in my life for it, honestly. I'm working on my record. That's kind of my primary focus right now. And then I have like all my companies and stuff that are taking up a lot of time. Asking is probably the least amount of time intensive stuff in my world.
Okay. Okay. So, speaking of your record, what else can we look forward to in Danny's world that's right around the corner?
So I'm finishing building this studio in the new house right now. That'll be done by the end of the month, and then I'm going to be recording all February. Obviously on tour during March. I'll probably release first single right after that, because we're in South America and then Australia. I have a week off in the middle. I'll probably be able to shoot a video and maybe get that out during the US, the Asking Tour US. And then yeah, once that Asking Tour is finished, Danny Worsnop touring and a whole bunch. I'm trying to stay real busy with it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It does. Are you going to add more dates at all? Because you can go to askingalexandria.com right now. Some West Coast, middle of the country. I don't see my neck of the woods just yet. Do you know if you're going to add more dates?
Let me look. I've looked at it, I think, twice.
And And what's the
I,
youngest? I think it's. I don't know if I could take my baby boy yet. We're taking him to
I
Foo
don't, I
Fighters
don't,
in June. I don't know.
I mean, I've from from where I sit at the shows, there isn't an age limit because all my guys bring their kids.
Okay,
I don't know. That'd be a venue question, honestly.
fair enough.
I mean,
Okay,
we've had babies at shows,
okay.
so it happens.
All right. Well, he's got his rock and roll headphones are ready to
Yeah,
go. So when you are in my neck of the woods, I hope to see you live, and I hope we get to do this again, Danny. This was a lot of
absolutely,
fun.
absolutely.
That much appreciated. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.